Don't take a shortcut just because, maybe you're not
Mhm.
up to, going out for a workout. No, you still have to push yourself because, what the motto with Roush Kicking is outwork everyone. Somebody else out there is working harder than you. So just have that in the back of your mind.
Welcome to the Talent Alone Won't Win podcast. I am your host, Susie Freeman. I am a mental performance coach, specifically working with kickers, punters, and long snappers. And I welcome you to the channel. Hey, everybody, I'm super excited today. I have Steve Rausch. He is local to me, or I'm local to him. Either way, we're both here in Phoenix, which is super fun. I'm super glad you took time and had time to come chat with me about, draft prep, college kids, all the things. But first thing I want to know, and I think you should maybe share just because some don't know, is, what's your journey and how did you get into kicking?
So my journey started when I was a junior in high school. I started playing soccer like most of the kids. And I'm a West Side kid, so I grew up in the Phoenix area. And my parents decided to kind of move me out of the area that we were in, and we moved to the East Valley. I ended up going to a school by the name of Dobson High School, and going into my junior season. And just so happened they had a kicking coach. Which really, I mean, really isn't very often, even this day and age in high school, to have a kicking coach.
Right.
Well, back then, and I'm gonna age myself here. So this was back in '85, '86, I guess. And this school had a kicking coach, Charlie Gorham. He is my only kicking coach, my mentor, a dear friend, kind of like a father figure. And a lot of our specialists with Roush Kicking have had a chance to meet him. He comes out occasionally to our sessions, and I had one shot. I had my senior year that I had a chance to kick, and he had worked with me that off season prior to getting to the school, and it just turned out that I had a really good season, and Arizona State offered me a full ride. I had a scholarship to U of A, had a lot of local schools, and this was way back when scholarships for specialists really wasn't very common at all. And
Yeah.
the less common thing was, how do you even get recruited? How do you get exposed to, school? I asked one of my coaches at ASU the other day. I said, how in the world did you ever hear? He's like, well, we did it the old fashioned way. We went out to schools, we watched Friday night games, coaches would talk, it was a lot of verbal communication. Of course, we'd get film and review that, but of course, no social media, and word just didn't travel as quick. You physically had to go there and watch these
Mhm.
athletes and recruit them. So that part of it, I thought back, and just now, this day and age, with X and Insta, and just with recruiting services and different things like that. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, how in the heck did we get recruited? And one, you had to stand out, which that's at that level, of course. That
Yeah.
helps. And so that was my backstory. I got a full scholarship to kick and punt. I was a combo guy at Arizona State. I primarily punted, did kickoffs, and did long field goals, and did that for 4 years. And then I got married, and then I just started my life and got into the working world, and didn't pursue football beyond that. But and then, quite honestly, didn't do a whole lot with kicking for several years after that. I just, life goes on, and
Okay.
get married and have kids, and she played sports, and my daughter played college softball at UMass, and so I became a bucket dad. I'd catch her all the time. She was a pitcher, and just so sports has always been in our family. And but yeah, that's kind of my backstory on just personally how I got started in kicking, and I got the bug, and but then it just kind of left me for a little bit and didn't continue with it until certain things kind of circled back, and it became available again, and jumped at the opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't know that you gave up. I didn't know you there was that big of a gap between coaching and your career yourself. That's awesome though. I mean, hey, I mean, we always want to be involved in our kids' lives, right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
I love
And,
that.
and it was interesting when, so the way it happened, a mutual friend of ours, Jay Ray. who we had talked about.
Mhm.
His son Jackson, he called me one day and asked me. He said, "All right, Roush, I don't know anything about kicking or punting or anything else. You did it way back in the day at ASU. Any chance?" He goes, "I think he may be good. He played soccer. He's on the football team. He's in ninth grade. Do you think you could work with him?" So it started with him, and then literally just a matter of a couple months later, I get a call from the Zavadas, and that was a that was a referral from a former teammate of mine at Arizona State, Kevin Minifield. His son played soccer with Dominic Zavada, and they said the Jeff and Jody, the Zavadas, they called me and said, "Hey, would you be willing to take a look at our son Dominic and see if he can kick?" And then kind of the same thing, and it was just a matter of weeks almost, and so then we all kind of know what that turned into. So, and then I had one other kid.
Mhm.
Like everything happened within like 4 to 6 weeks, and I call them my OGs. It's my three guys that I started with initially.
Yeah.
One of them went to Houston. One of them, obviously, Dom went to Michigan, and then of course Ilya now is still kicking at New Mexico State. So, it was a good start, and it just and then from there it just caught momentum, and word started to travel pretty quick. And then all of a sudden, I figured, well, I better start doing some research on kicking coaches and organizations and companies, and never knew anything about it. The game hadn't changed that much, and I know how to coach. I know how to evaluate and assess people and talent, and I'd study up on some technique and mechanics and different things like that. But I mean, I'll never forget, I had never heard of a Coles kicking. I had never heard of any of this. And so I started doing my research, and it didn't take long before I always kind of eventually circle back to Jamie Cole. I just felt like he ran his business the right way, and I put on my business hat, and just really approached just kind of my assessment and my evaluations, from a business perspective. And
Mhm.
and I felt that how he ran his business, the reputation he had, I think just really aligned with kind of who I am, and probably how I would approach it, not in terms of doing a ranking type camp organization, but the coaching development part of it, and the recruiting piece, still being very objective as he is, and just doing it with character, and and really helping these kids to try to develop. So that's probably more than you wanted, but that's a pretty full
Yeah.
backstory on kind of how I got here.
I love that. It's funny because obviously that's where we met and what we kind of have in common, and it's the same sort of thing. Jay Ray's my neighbor, right? So he does the speed and agility. My daughters work with him, so we were just chatting one day on sports, and he was telling me about his son, and then I was the story, and then all about how all other athletes, things happen, bad coaching, or there's this or that, just the pressures and stuff around sports, and that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I need to help these kids, right? I was already in the space a bit. And then that's how I ended up with Dominic. I'm like, hey, I need a kid.
Yeah.
And of
Yep.
course, we had no idea. That's when he had just done his transfer from Arkansas to Michigan. So it's fun. It's so good to just be in that space. And didn't Jackson end up being like 10th in the nation when he entered college?
Yeah.
Something like that. He was pretty good, right, at punting.
Arguably, he was probably him and Tommy Doman and one other kid. He was legitimately a top three punter. And no, Jackson was very talented and started at Colorado State, and things just didn't go well there. They ended up firing the entire staff after 1 year. They had just hired him, and then so they gave all the players an opportunity to transfer, and he ended up going to University of Houston. But yeah, he was Jackson was a quick learner, very athletic, very talented, and very similar to Dom, very similar to Ilya. All three from the very beginning responded well to the coaching. Very gifted, very talented, worked extremely hard, and yeah, so their success came pretty quick. I thought, you know what, this is pretty easy. You get three guys get full scholarships. You go on to go, and then realizing it certainly isn't. But there's know, I have an expectation with these guys, outwork everyone,
Mhm.
don't compare. And if you stick to that, most of them will develop and evolve at different paces, but at the same time, and there's different skill sets, and not everybody plays D1. We know that, but there's an opportunity in a spot somewhere for somebody. So
Yeah. I would agree. So with that, I one of the questions I had for you was how do you recognize or can you even recognize somebody that has it? They may not be talented or have that physical skill yet, but when we can see like work ethic and attitude and all of the things. Can you tell pretty early
sure.
with a kid when they come to you like, "Hey, if this kid really does stick with it, like we're good."
Yeah, absolutely. And because there's different kids are built different. Some kids are, more or less athletic than the others. Kicking a field goal, you can tell a kid that strikes the ball very naturally, that has a fast leg, a good swing, very balanced. And maybe just gets it a little bit quicker than someone else doesn't mean that the other person may not surpass them because they work harder. You can't see how they're built inside early on because you don't know them well enough. You don't know the ones that are
Mhm.
going to put in more work than others or less. But if yeah, there's without a question. I mean, there's some that are just very naturally gifted, and those ones that combine that with hard work and take care of their bodies and do all the right things, typically end up having good success because we coach them at a very high level. I don't hold these kids back, and I think the proof is there in terms of just the amount of kids in a short 6 years just out of the state of Arizona, versus
Right.
traveling. I don't do camps in other states and travel all across the country and claim kids from New York to New Mexico. It's and do one camp and claim that that's my kicker. No, that's not the case. We develop these kids out of one state, and I could very easily argue that we have developed probably as many, if not more, D1 kids, meaning long snappers, punters, and kickers,
Mhm.
any state in the country, and in many cases developed and helped get these kids opportunities to play at the next level than any of these other organizations that do it and do camps all over the country. So we're very fortunate. We have over 80 kids right now playing at a Roush kicking in college football right now, and
That's so good.
yeah, there's probably equally that many in high school, and now
Okay.
we've got a handful in the NFL, which we're working with, and I'm sure we'll get to talking about a couple of those as well that are doing extremely well. But we're finally at that point. We're about a year in now to where when it started, 6 years ago, I started with the high school guys, and they, graduate into college, and now they're graduating out of college, and they're having that NFL opportunity, and some of them are already there, a handful of them, and then some are getting ready to go in this draft. So, yeah, it's neat. It's neat to see how this has evolved because when you're with them, just as you are every step of the way, you get to see their mature,
Mhm.
develop, physically, mentally, and how they handle things, and
Yeah.
it evolve season over season. And as a coach, I mean, we're parents. As parents, they're proud moments to see these young men um, fulfill dreams and and achieve accomplishments, which is kind of why we do it. That's why we compete to get better.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's my favorite part, knowing that we, or at least I, and I know you just said it, get to be a piece of helping them fulfill a dream. And, not even mention that it's a point oh whatever percent of a dream, right? It's just that they're willing to just go all in. That part is the best. So, with that, one of the things I think is extremely valuable coming from you, because you do coach at such a high level, which I love because I see the intention. I work with some of your guys, and I even have guys that want to come to you. They're in another state and they're like, yeah, I've heard of him. I got to get out there. So that says a lot about who you are as a person and character. And I love that. But what would you say is one of the, twofold question. What are some really good qualities or good habits that you really try to instill in the guys and see that they have consistently kind of across the board? And then what are some of the kind of like mistakes? So to help these guys out, like do this, don't do this kind of thing if you want to be at that next level.
Yeah. So some of the habits obviously is having a consistent routine, and don't short yourself on the small things. That's extremely important. Some of these guys, they'll
Yeah.
go out and they'll start with their drills, and I'll watch them out of the corner of my eye, and they're just kind of doing it to get through it so they can get back to 45 yards and start hitting some full steps, and they're cheating. They're cheating the process. It doesn't happen often, but I do catch it, and I make sure that I make sure we correct it, because it's the details is what allows them to eventually grow and develop into being an elite, consistent specialist. And it is
Mhm.
to details, and it comes back to those drills, and those are the most important thing. And it's doing quality. I typically don't give them a number. So for example, if I want somebody to do 1 steps, I don't tell them, okay, go over here, start off with no steps and do 4, start off with 1 steps and do 5. No,
Okay.
tell you feel like you're hitting a clean ball, then we don't move on to the next station. And there's a variety of other different drills that we do as well. For punters, we're doing drops. If you feel like your drop is just your release isn't there, ball's coming out of your hand a little inconsistent, then walk across the field another time, another 52 yards, and do a whole other set of drops before you really feel comfortable with your release and your table. Same thing with snappers and some of the progressions and mechanics and drills that we go through with them. Um, so and other things as far as, I guess, creating bad habits. Was that the second question?
Yeah, just what are some of the mistakes you see these guys do?
Yeah, it's well, when it comes to mechanics, it's pretty easy to identify those flaws. Um,
Okay.
and it's something that maybe not for all coaches, but for me it is, and it's something because I know my guys really well. I study them very closely. I'm as much of a student as I ask them to be. I study film at night. So I know all their tendencies, and so there's a variety of things. I just sent a side by side photo of a ball release, body position, and punting. I had Austin McNamara, which is like textbook on his release. And I have Brody Richter, who's at New Mexico State, who's good, but isn't quite at that level yet. So I did a couple frames, slow frames, and I did a side by side, and you could just clearly see the difference in the two.
Uh,
I mean, it can be a variety of things. It can be angle to
yeah.
the ball. It can be, plant foot's too tight. Maybe you're wrapping around outside panel and you're kind of hitting an X rotation. There's a combination of things. Punts, if we're working operation time, maybe our ops time is a little too slow. Maybe our steps are a little too long. Um, maybe the
Okay.
app is getting into our body and eating us up, and we're not establishing our mold quick enough, which transitions into your table. We want to have our guys and our punters what we call a catch to foot, from the time they catch the ball to the time it hits their foot. We want it less than 1.3 seconds. So 1.25 to 1.28 is where we need to be, and we don't want them to travel past about 3.5 yards. So we're very, very specific with that. And it's very important, because for those guys that are fortunate to reach the next level, I take a lot of pride in the fact that when they show up to campus in college, they're as prepared as any kid coming out of high school, because we make sure that we teach things beyond just the basic fundamentals of punting, kicking, and long snapping. We teach what
Yeah.
it's going to take to translate at that next level day one. So there's a lot of things that we identify and we don't hold back. But I like to call positive,
Yeah.
and I can always do it with a silver lining, and make sure that these guys understand that we just try not to make the same mistakes twice, and continue to work hard.
Yeah. What when it comes to, so I'll ask you this only because I know you work with a lot of high school kids and those that are just entering college right now. So for that space right there, and also they happen to be a lot of the guys watching these videos, which is kind of fun. So a tidbit for them. The ones that have just finished senior season in high school, they are not really right. Season's over. They haven't yet made it to college. They're like right now in this limbo space because they don't get to be attached to the team at school anymore. So the workouts are on their own. This is on their own. Practices are on their own. Um, I've noticed with a few that I've worked with that sometimes that's the hardest time. It's senioritis, it's the things to keep them locked in,
Sure.
at least mentally.
Yeah.
A lot feel like, oh, I've snapped twice this week, I'm good, or whatever it might be. What advice do you have for those guys? Right? Because we talked about like Stefan, who went a little early to Ole Miss. I mean, he's grinding for sure, a little different, but to be to that sort of caliber, what can you give these other ones this tip to not get into this
Yeah.
lull, this slump where then they show up and they're like, "Oh my god, college is so hard."
Sure, and you have to have a plan without question. And I gladly share that plan with any specialist. It doesn't cost anything, but a lot of it
That's
has to
nice.
do with you'll have a little downtime, which everybody should postseason, but
Mhm.
then relatively soon they're going to jump into camps. You'll have your independent camp,
Okay.
and schools will invite them out, or they'll go to just some of these independent camps. But it's creating a plan, to where you're consistently working on your craft, you're consistently hitting the gym, you're consistently meeting with you each week, you're consistently coming out and working with me on the weekends, you're consistently doing your rehab, consistently doing your recovery. That plan should never stop. And that's the most important thing is you have to sit down, take a little time, put it on paper, and just basically map out your entire calendar for the next 2 3 months, which is exactly what I did with a lot of our college guys, entering into the NFL draft. And it's very important, and it becomes a very long season, a very extended season, but at the same time, you know, failing to plan is planning to fail. It's cliche, it's old, but I mean, just you have to have a plan. And yes, you don't want to overwork. You want to make sure that you're getting quality reps. You want to make sure you're taking care of your body, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're putting in good quality work, and consistency will win out every time. And that's one thing. But everybody knows their body a little different. There's some guys that I just found out a couple days ago that just finished the NFL season and they took a month and a half off. Some guys maybe take a month. I had a session with Harrison Buckter out here in Tempe 4 years ago, and he said, "Steve, you'll think I'm crazy, but I do not have a session where I hit less than 50 balls." He goes, "If I hit less than 50 balls at a session, I feel like the next day I'm off." And he goes, "I get it.
Wow.
Most guys are 25 to 30 balls." He goes, he's 6'4", 220. So he's a big kicker. He goes, "But even at that," he goes, "I get it." He goes, "But I know my body. I know what it takes." And he's
Yeah.
very, very, very methodical about it. But he understands his body and he knows what works. And so that's his routine. But, and that's kind of the extreme from others. But, no, well for you. Don't, at the same time, don't take don't take a shortcut just because maybe you're not
Mhm.
up to going out for a workout. No, you still have to push yourself because what the motto with Roush Kicking is outwork everyone. Somebody else out there is working harder than you. So just have that in the back of your mind, and then go out and compete to be the best you can be. And then on top of that, don't compare. And the reason why I say that, and it came from Butch Jones, it was a quote. He's the head coach at Arkansas State. And when Dom was there as a freshman, he shared that with Dom, and I heard it, and I thought that's brilliant. As simple as it is, I thought brilliant. And basically the point in that is compete with yourself. And when you start comparing, what you'll find yourself doing is typically you're just making excuses. And I've always found that to be true. You're pointing fingers. Well, it's this, it's a snap, it's a hold, it's conditions, or it's the football, or it's this, or so. Just when you start comparing, just you're looking for excuses, or you're just trying to make yourself feel better. Well, neither one work. So you get
Mhm.
outwork everyone, compete, don't compare, have a good routine, make sure it's consistent, and you'll be pleased with the results.
Yeah. So I love how you said, having the plan and all of that. That's something I work extensively with guys on. Even at the college level, they have to be reminded, like, what's the plan for the week, right? You always work your hours and see what you've got, because homework and stuff.
Yeah.
So um when when you were planning or making the plan for the guys that headed into draft, right? Getting into that prep, what's some of the biggest things that you help them with in that plan, in that space? And do you recommend that they stay where they're at near their facility? Because I've had guys do both. Some are like, I'm out of here, and they left, and they haven't went back except for pro day. Others are like there as if nothing's changed, they're at the facility every day. So how did you create the plan, and did you base that on the guy and maybe the resources at the college he
Yeah,
had?
yeah, I know that's a good question, and a lot of it has to do with the coaches that they're working with and the
Mm.
accessibility to them. Which I'm in Arizona. We have a lot of Arizona guys that actually were getting ready for the NFL draft this year, so that part of it was fairly convenient. They all wanted
Yeah.
that time off to be back here, so that worked out convenient. And if that's not the case, then I completely understand. Guys that have coaches in other parts of the country, then I'm sure they arrange very similar type schedule and routine that I did. Our routine was Tuesday and Thursday mornings. I have a day job, so I we would get up really early, and we'd go meet at a one of the very few college fields left here in Arizona, because they don't have junior college football. So it was very important that we had College Post, and myself and Dominic Zavada would come out. John Furlman, the long snapper, would come out. We'd have Wes Paul. He would come out. The punter. We had a few Aussies. One from
Yeah.
Notre Dame would come out. Another one, Jack Burgess from Texas Tech, came out. Had another gentleman, Ollie, that came out from West Virginia. We probably had, I'd say, anywhere from 8 to 10 specialists at our sessions that whole 6 weeks leading up to it. We had Greg Tarr that came out, of course, from Michigan. So we had a really good balance, and it was very structured. I had the charting schedule from the combine, so I put each one of them through a very specific charting schedule each day that they would come out, and we'd go through field goals, kickoffs, snaps, punts, and just
Mhm.
work all three phases. And we would do it verbatim to make sure that they were creating that muscle memory. And then they would go after those workouts early in the morning, and then they would go do their training with Move Performance, and then after that, they do their recovery, and then we'd be back at it Thursday morning, and then after Thursday morning, we would typically do it Saturday mornings, depending on schedule. Sometimes we'd rotate in a Sunday, but typically it was 3 days a week. So we weren't over kicking. We had a very specific kick and punt and snap count that we followed, that was consistent, and it worked out pretty well. All the guys went to camp and performed exceptionally well. So we were very pleased.
Yeah, no, that's so good. So, not to keep you too much longer, but what would be one of the best pieces of advice you can give um, for somebody that's like junior year in college who really has the potential to go pro and finally like is like, hey, yeah, this is definitely a path. Like for sure, I'm doing this. Um, what's the best piece of advice you can give him that's like, hey, if that's the path, like, could you, there's a different form of lock-in, right? We know that.
Yeah,
What's your piece of advice you can give that guy?
one, if they're not working with somebody like you, I highly recommend that they do, because they're at a stage in their career
Thanks.
where physically, um, they're pretty advanced. And I mean, it's the smallest of littlest of things at that point in terms of mechanics, and so having somebody that is working with them on the mental side of the game, the preparation, how do you cope with certain things? The brain's a muscle, just like the leg is a muscle. So you gotta condition it and train it and strengthen it the same way, and develop that routine also. That's key. And then also, listening to your body, being smart about about the workouts you're doing. And if you have an off day, don't try to kick through it or punt through it and hit another 50 balls, because typically all you're going to end up doing is creating bad habits. And so there's nothing wrong with just shutting it down and saying, you know what, this wasn't my day. I'm going to come back and I'll have a better day. Really work a lot with, at that level. Work more so than ever with your entire ops team. Extremely important. Develop the strongest relationship you've ever had on and off the field with that team, because you have got to be in sync with them. Extremely important. You don't have to be best friends. You don't have to hang out and do everything together.
Mhm.
But you certainly should respect each other and get along with each other
Mhm.
too. Um, but you also have to be, very open and honest with each other. And nobody can take it defensive. You have to have a very transparent and honest relationship, and it's important that each person knows that, each one another cares for one another, and so you can have those candid conversations. If someone's a little off, or snaps quarter spin consistently every time, then we've got to make some adjustments, or a lot of different things that can happen. But you got to have a very strong, open-minded, open relationship with your unit, and I think that goes a long ways. And everybody needs to be on the same page, determined, driven towards the same goals, and um,
Yeah.
and then at the end, hold each other accountable. Hold each other accountable. They're all striving towards the same goal, and it's important to hold each other accountable, to make sure that everybody's putting in the work, and that in the end, it'll produce good results, and everybody will be happy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that that bond with that unit is just the best. Like you've got to have that. And I was so fortunate that I got to work with the full Michigan guys, the whole team, and the Florida unit. So that was just incredible that they all would, show up and do the work on all fronts. I think it made obviously a wild difference. It's not every day that a whole unit goes to the combine together. So whether I think that was not fair or fair, no, it was good.
Them.
But go ahead.
Yeah, so no, they've earned it. They have absolutely earned it, and we see it for
Mhm.
how hard they work. And on top of that, we talked earlier about me having a day job and a team, and I run a region, and try to keep up my kicking, and I'm married. My daughter's getting whatever. Everybody has. You, you just deal. Try to organize,
Yeah.
and they've got school, they've got lifting and practice and games and travel. That's just life. It's preparing them for that. And I will say this: all the guys we deal with handle it extremely well. All the guys that I work with
Mhm.
at high school are very, very well prepared in that sense, in terms of just the expectations, and the hard work that they're in for. And I think we've got a lot of uncommon guys, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's super fun. I do appreciate the sport and the guys in it here because they're very, very good and very locked in. And I appreciate the advice you gave here. A lot of amazing, great nuggets. So, I mean, I appreciate the time, and I know there's a lot of guys looking forward to continue working with you and you seeing them through. So, do you have any cool ones coming up for next year's draft that you can say?
You know, it's interesting. There's going to be a handful, and we'll see how this coming year develops. But we have a couple in just about every position that I feel very confident with.
Okay,
Um, We have what and actually in quite a few different conferences. We have we have quite a few high school guys coming up too. I mean, we've got the number one 2027 place kicker, Mikey Barth, that's committed to ASU here locally out of Arizona,
nice.
the number one place kicker in the country. We've got the number one 2028 punter in the nation, that Cam Candelaria. He's a punter out of Pinnacle High School here locally with Roush Kicking in Arizona. Um, but arguably, they have him ranked number two, but I'd say he's the number one 6'4", 235-pound long snapper, Braylon Logan. He's out of Sandra Day O'Connor. He's local. Coming out, he's a 2027. We have Israel Carmona, who is at Queen Creek. He's a 2028. He's a top five place kicker and a top 10 punter, one of the best in the nation. I've got a kid that flies down every couple months from Tacoma, Washington, Landon Kingston. He's a place kicker. He's a top five guy all day long, 6'2", 210, long levers. It's a big ball. Another great one. And then our youngest one, a 2029, his name is Jax Demelmeyer. He's at Queen Creek High School here in Arizona. He's a freshman,
Okay.
and I'm not gonna get ahead of myself or make anybody mad, but I will say that there's a very good chance if he keeps working and for at the level that he's at now, he could be the best that's ever come out of Arizona. And he's
Okay.
currently ranked the number one 2029 place kicker in the nation. So we've got them stacked up pretty much every year, and beyond that, there's dozens of others, but those are some of the ones that you're going to see um, talked about quite a bit, and they are all very elite talent, and so yeah, we're excited to work with them and develop them along with the dozens of other specialists that we're going to be working with developing too.
I love that. I appreciate you again, and I know all the guys appreciate you. And I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what's come of the future with these boys.
Likewise, and thanks for everything you do, Susie. I mean, it really an X factor. It makes such a huge difference in how these guys process and approach, and just the mental strength and how they apply that to the field. And it truly is an X factor, and it's something that's been needed for a long time. And it's certainly in those pressure situations. I mean, I can see,
Mhm.
it's you teach him routine, and I just used Dom as an example. This He went 4 for 4 on game-winning field goals, and he's not doing this in a high school stadium of 500 players. I mean, it's Ohio State, 100 plus thousand, and you've got to you do a really good job of putting them in a space to where they have that routine, to where no outside factors or distractions enter in, and that's a big piece of all of our success in helping these kids develop to the next level. So great job to you as well.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's fun.
You
But thanks so much.
bet. Good to catch up.
Hey, thank you so much for watching and listening to the Talent Alone Won't Win podcast. If you want to get more tips and tricks on how to uplevel your mental game, subscribe to the channel and visit my website, susiefreeman.com, and let's connect.